Hey guys, the clip you're about to watch was filmed by one of our tutors here at TBT, so I hope it helps you enjoy.
Now let's talk about the different eye parts and all of their respective functions. Okay, we will first begin with the three main layers of the eyeball. Okay, I have labeled them A, B, and C, so we will go through them one by one. Okay, so let's start with the first layer, layer A. Okay, what do we call layer A? We call it the sclera. Okay, so from this diagram, you can see that it is a opaque and white layer, right? So let's write that down. It is opaque and white. Okay, so let's take a guess. What could possibly be the function of the sclera? Okay, it is very tough. So what could possibly be the function of it being very tough? It has to protect the eyeball from injury. Okay, so the sclera is the protective helmet of our eyeball. It is opaque and white. Okay, except for this region over here. Okay, that part is transparent, obviously, right? If not, how will you be able to see? Okay, so we'll get into that later on. So part A is the sclera. Let's move on to part B. Okay, part B, you can see that it's the black color layer. Okay, so the black color layer is called the choroid. Okay, firstly, our choroid is rich in blood vessels. Okay, why does it have to be rich in blood vessels? Okay, it is supplying something to the eyeball as well as removing. Take a guess, what does it need to supply the eyeball with? What does it need to remove from the eyeball? Okay, supplying, it will obviously be oxygen and nutrients, okay, for the proper functioning of the eyeball. And for removing, it will be carbon dioxide and metabolic waste products. Okay, so we've done the choroid. Let's move on to the third layer. Okay, the third layer is called the retina. Okay, and the retina contains this very important thing called photoreceptors. Okay, so photoreceptors, photo, what is that? Means light, right? Like photosynthesis. So photoreceptors, they are essentially light receptors. Okay, they tell the brain what the eyeball is seeing. All right, now that we have finished the first three layers, let's get into the different parts of the eye. Okay, first things first, let's talk about this. It is the first structure that we are talking about. Okay, take a guess. What is the name? It is the cornea. Okay, so like what I mentioned just now, the cornea, it has to be transparent, right? If not, how do you see? Okay, it is transparent. Its main function is to refract light. Okay, so if I draw light ray entering, when it passes through the cornea, it will bend a bit. That is what refraction is, okay, the bending of light. Okay, so if I were to draw it out, reflection is what we are probably more familiar with, right? So reflection is if the light is here, it will get reflected off. Okay, but let's say we're talking about refraction. If the light hits a curved surface like that, it will bend. Okay, the light ray will bend. So it will look something like that. Okay, so over here it is reflecting. Over here it is refracting. Okay, so what is the point of refracting the light? Okay, why do we need the eyeball to do that? Okay, it's because we want the light to bend in such a way that it will be able to focus on a single point on the retina. Okay, this is so that we can have a clearer and a focused image. On that note, let's go back to our choroid, okay? Let's talk about another characteristic of the choroid, which is that, like I mentioned just now, it is pigmented black. Okay, why? Why is it pigmented black? Why black, this very special color? Okay, so it's pigmented black to prevent internal refraction of light. Okay, what does that even mean? What is internal refraction of light? So let's say I am drawing an eyeball. So when you draw an eyeball, right, it's not a perfect circle. There'll be a bit of a bulge over here, and that's to accommodate the cornea, okay? So let's imagine that there's none of this black layer, okay? So light will enter, it will enter into the eye, okay, and then it will bounce off, right? It will reflect. It will bounce off once, might bounce off again, who knows, might bounce off a third time. Okay, it will bounce around in the eyeball. Then what happens? It will bounce around, it will hit the retina in different spots, right? Okay, there will be one image here, another image here, another image here. Okay, you'll be seeing lots of different images. What happens if this is the case? You will get very blur images. Okay, and this is obviously not good, right? This is not good for our eyesight. Of course, we don't want to be looking at blur images, not being able to see properly what's in front of us, right? Okay, so that is why the choroid is pigmented black. Okay, why black? Black absorbs all colors. So this black color will absorb every color that enters the eye and it prevents it from being refracted, such that there will only be one image that is presented on a retina. Okay, so on the retina in the eyeball, you can see this little, it's like a bit of a dip, right? Okay, what do we call this structure? It is called the fovea, or some people also call it the yellow spot. Okay, so what's so special about the fovea? It is the place with a very high concentration of receptors. Okay, very high concentration of photoreceptors. And because of that, most light will be focused here. Okay, therefore, light that hits the fovea will generate the sharpest image. So you can just imagine like when your mobile phone, when it has 4 bars of data connection, okay, that's when you get the best experience, right? The fastest, clearest YouTube video when you're watching it. Okay, so it is the same concept. Now, following on to that, let's look at this structure that is coming out of the eyeball. And alongside with that, we can look at this space over here. Okay, so let's label it 3 and 4. Now let's talk about structure 3 first. Okay, what do we call structure 3? It is called the optic nerve. And what is the optic nerve? Okay, it contains sensory neurons, specifically sensory neurons of photoreceptors. So do take note, the optic nerve does not contain motor neurons, okay? The only function of your optic nerve is to send nerve impulses from the eye to the brain. Now moving on to number 4. Okay, you see that gap over there, we call it the blind spot. So what's special about this blind spot? Okay, it's quite self-explanatory in the name itself. You cannot see when path of light hits the blind spot because there is no photoreceptors there. Okay, there are no photoreceptors on the blind spot, so in that area, you can't see. Okay, so there's just a special spot you need to take note of.
Hey guys, today's sponsor of the video is me. As of making this video, ThatBioTutor is Singapore's only O-level pure bio specialist. You mean you don't teach any other subjects or syllabus? Yup, that's how we've been able to make so much resources just for your syllabus. Example, concise notes without all the extra fluff. Commonly asked questions that come out under every topic, so you know the exact keywords and phrases to score full marks. Didn't pay attention in class? Crash course clips to the rescue. We've recorded explanations for every concept under every chapter. Find bio a chore to memorize, flashcards on your phone, which makes it feel like a game. So if you need help with O-level pure bio, what are you waiting for? Click the link below this video or go to thatbiotutor.com. Now back to the video.
Alright, now going back to our image, let's move on to this watery substance over here. Okay, we'll label it number 5. And what is number 5? It is the aqueous humor. Okay, you can see that the aqueous humor is right behind the cornea, right? So its function is to nourish the cornea with nutrients. Okay, and I also talked about the bulge. So your eyeball is not a perfect circle, right? There's a bit of a bulge. And this is by the drop of the aqueous humor. Okay, it gives the front of the eye its shape. Okay, and one last function of it, the aqueous humor also refracts light. Okay, so if we look at the eyeball over here, if a ray of light enters, pass through the cornea, it will bend a bit. Pass through aqueous humor, it will bend a bit. Pass through the lens, it will bend a bit. And then when it goes into the vitreous humor, it will bend a bit as well. Okay, so it is a process. Now that we are done with the aqueous humor, let's talk about the next structure, which is the green color looking things over here, number 6. Okay, so on this diagram, it is green, but for most of us, it is probably black. Okay, this is the iris. So in reality, it is like a circle, okay, it's one piece. On this diagram, it looks like there's 2 pieces, but it's a cross-section, okay? So like I said, the iris gives the eye color. And the iris also has a very important job. It controls the pupil size. Okay, what is the pupil? It is the 7th structure that we're going to talk about. It is basically the hole over here. Okay, so you can think of the iris as like curtains for your eyes. Okay, so for example, if it's too bright, the curtains will close, right? So your iris will close up. And the pupil is essentially just a hole in the eye. Okay, and function of the pupil is that it changes the amount of light entering the eye. Okay, so you can think of your pupil as the open part of the window that allows the light to go through. Alright, let's move on to the next structure, which is structure 8. Okay, structure 8 is that circle thing looking over there, and it is our lens. Okay, once again, the lens, it refracts light as well. And a special feature about the lens is that it is flexible. Okay, why does the lens need to be flexible? Because the flexibility allows us to see things at different distances. Okay, so if, for example, you do an eye test, okay, you look very far away. Next thing, put a finger in front of you. Okay, if you're focusing on the finger, whatever is far away, it will start to blur out, right? And same thing, if this finger is in front of you and you're looking far, the finger will be blurred out. Okay, so the eyes, they can't focus at things that are different distances. So the shape of the lens will determine the focus of the eye, and this will allow us to see things at different distances. All right, now let's talk about how is the lens attached to the eye. Okay, it is attached to the eye through these rope-looking things, okay? And the rope-looking things attaches the lens onto the muscle over here. Okay, so 9 and 10. Let's go into that. To illustrate how exactly, the lens are attached to the eye, let's draw a front view of the eye, okay? Because just now it was a cross-section, right? Okay, so I'm drawing a circle. Okay, this is the front view. Okay, this thing in the middle, it will be the lens. And the lens is attached to the rest of the eye through these like rope-looking things. Okay, so what exactly do we call these rope-looking things? They are called suspensory ligaments. Okay, so suspend, it means to hold something, right? So suspensory ligaments, it attaches the lens to the ciliary body. Okay, and ciliary body is the next structure that we are gonna talk about. So just a quick note here, your suspensory ligaments, they are like ropes, okay? They are not muscles. So you cannot write that your suspensory ligament is contracting, relaxing. That's not correct. Okay, so moving on to the ciliary body, it contains ciliary muscles. Okay, so the ciliary muscles will pull on the lens. It will pull on the lens in order to control the shape of the lens. Okay, so we already talked about how it's important for our lens to be flexible in order to allow us to see things at different distances, right? But our lens, it can't adjust itself. So it needs someone to help it adjust. Okay, and that is the job of the ciliary muscles of the ciliary body. Now let's move on. Okay, we have last two structures to talk about. Number 11 will be the big gap in the middle of the eye, and number 12 will be this thing over here. Okay, what is the name for structure 11? It is the vitreous humor. Okay, so humor, not like ha ha ha, very funny, okay? Humor is a scientific word for bodily fluid. So vitreous humor, it is jelly-like. It is a bodily fluid that is jelly-like. Now, we also learned another humor just now, the aqueous humor, right? So aqueous, it means it is watery. Okay, so what is the main function of the vitreous humor? Same thing, it is to refract light. Okay, and it also gives the eyeball its shape. All right, on to the last structure that we're going to talk about today. It is the rectus muscle. Okay, so if I had to draw out this rectus muscle, it will look something like, okay, this is the eyeball. Okay, there'll be one on top, one below the right, and on the left. Okay, and from this, can you guess what is the function of the rectus muscle? It is to control eyeball movement. So for example, I want to see something on my right. Okay, it's not possible for me to just turn my entire head, right? There's no need for me to do that. Okay, I can just turn my eyeball, look to the right. And that is the function of the rectus muscle. Okay, so with that, we have gone through all of the different eye parts.
Hey guys, if that was helpful for you, then subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to join our O-level pure bio tuition classes, click the link below or go to thatbiotutor.com.